a woman between First World War and Second World War opening a restaurant in Milano at the time, you weren't as welcome as a woman to hold such a powerful position. My words is I have the restaurant DNA inside my body. At 12 years old, I knew I was going to be a restaurateur. Now, how many kids at 12 years old today know what they want to be? I knew then because this woman touched me.
I'm Alex Mendez, and if you're part of a family business, this story will truly resonate with you. Imagine a family that has turned the art of hospitality into a global legacy. A true story that began in 1926, almost a century ago, when a woman called Beatrice Ruggeri opened a small trattoria in Milan, serving not only food, but warmth, belonging, and love. Nearly a century later, her grandson, Raffaele Ruggeri, continues the legacy, leading the BICE Group, a global restaurant family that spans continents, from New York to Dubai, yet still carries the same heartbeat that began in his grandmother's kitchen, BICE Trattoria. In our conversation with Raffaele, I explore what it really means to carry a family legacy, how to protect your heritage without being trapped by it, how to expand globally while staying true to your roots, and how to transform family values into a culture that inspires thousands of employees and customers around the world. Raffaele shares the deep truth that every family in business eventually faces, that you don't inherit success, you inherit a story. And it's responsibility to honor it, evolve it, and make it relevant for the next generation. This episode is not just about restaurants. It's about purpose, belonging, and leadership that transcends the business itself. Join me as we step inside of the world's most enduring family legacies and discover what it truly means to reinvent tradition without losing your soul. So welcome to this new episode of the podcast, Business in Families, Raffaele.
Grazie mille. I am honored to be here.
Well, thank you. Raffaele, BICE is more than a restaurant. It's an institution that carries Italian hospitality around the world. How would you describe the essence of BICE legacy that began with your grandmother Beatrice, BICE Ruggeri, in Milano in 1926, almost 100 years ago?
I am 53 years old today, and I am the CEO of this group, which obviously was the torch that was passed down to me by my father. And that started, as you said, 1926 in Milano, in a very different world that we know today. The first thing I want to say that eh, what I want to say about this family is that in 1926, a woman, my grandmother, with her husband, which was not unfortunate, he died early in his life, next to her, but it was her that opened the business and ran it and did everything. So already there, a woman between First World War and Second World War opening a restaurant in Milano at the time, still today, but Milano is the driving force of Italy. So this matriarch that in a world where then it wasn't, you weren't as welcome as a woman to hold such a powerful position, and began a legacy that I my words is I have the restaurant DNA inside my body. And the reason is I was between 9 and 12 years old, 10 and 12. Then I went to boarding school in Switzerland. But those years on Sundays, I would go to work with my father. And I would come there I'd go to work. I would go with my father with him to the restaurant, and I would spend the morning in the office. At the time, we were printing the menus daily, and it was those taka 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 typewriters that our kids have no idea what they are. So I would play creating, menus, whatever I was scrambling on, and then I would be next to my grandmother for lunch, and my grandmother took me under and show me the beauty of this business. At 12 years, I have 5 children. At
Hmm.
12 years old, I knew I was going to be a restaurateur. Now, how many kids at 12 years old today know what they want to be? I knew then because this woman touched me. Witnessing her moving around, the excitement of a restaurant already in the early 80s for me then, because I was a little boy, but in Milano thriving, it's been incredible. And I want to recognize today what this woman has achieved for my father, for myself, and as we're going to get into, for my kids and the generation hopefully to come. So incredible, incredible.
So thank you, Raffaele. But when you think about your family history, what are those values or traditions from your grandmother that you're still alive in the beach operations today?
I come from a family of hardworking. My grandmother was more of a working grandmother than a grandchildren grandmother, so to speak. Of course, we spent time with her, but the restaurant was her life. And in my business, the restaurant business, when you do it at my level, at the level of the ownership, you are involved in most of the time because there is investors. But again, in my family, we are very involved in every aspect of it. So values that I have picked up from my grandmother and my father is hard work. Most important, take care of your guests because when you come to my restaurant, you're coming into my home. And for all of us that welcome guests in our home, when somebody comes into your home, I know that I at least go beyond to make sure that they feel comfortable in every way possible. And those are traits that I witnessed from my grandmother. She was a woman that would go to tables to important people and say, Mr. X, Mrs. Wife, you're going to eat this today and you're going to eat that because I just got this. And they would say, yes, Biche, whatever you say, Biche. So, really, an ownership of what we value, what we serve, what we represent, because again, I'm very proud today of who I am, but most important, what we are doing with the restaurants, the current restaurants, and the life we've had. I am extremely proud, and those are values that I picked up from my grandmother and my father.
And let me share with the audience that I had the opportunity in the late '80s when I discovered Biche in New York. I was like any other guest in the restaurant. Never knew. I didn't knew your father, Roberto, but he was the one welcome every guest at that point because he just opened in New York City, and he made me feel at home every time I went, and I went for many many years. And I shared with you before we began this interview that I had the opportunity many years later to receive from your father this marvelous gift, which is the something that Gianni Versace designed for Biche many years ago, and it used to be in every restaurant. And I have mine, and it's in my office for the last almost 30 years along. So let me tell, the values of your family are carried on in every table, in every service, in everything. But thinking about your grandmother as a pioneer in the beginning of last century, hospitality at that time, very few women were restaurateurs. What do you think were the biggest challenges that your grandmother was facing at that time, and then your father and your uncle that passed away later faced in that time?
Uh, because of this 100-year anniversary that is coming upon my family, this year I have been working on um, I'm, I'm writing. I am co-writing this memoir. No, I don't know memoir. This book that it's actually. I didn't want to do a cookbook, but what I decided to do is a book that goes through this last 10 decades of Milano through the eyes of my grandmother, my father, and myself. Obviously,
Mhm.
starting with my grandmother. So, with that said, there was a lot of research and interviews I did with my father, their uncle, just to gather information. And so, if you think about it, so World War I finish, and my grandmother opened the restaurant in 26. Milano was at the explosion of what Italy, after post-war one and all these crazy things and beginning to expand. And then, first years, you learn, and here is a woman. Her husband was next to her. He was more of the artist playing guitar. And at the time, from the information I gather, you would come to a restaurant, they have three, four, five dishes they serve that day. It's not like today you get a menu and then you cook some meals and you go there, whatever was available you would eat. So then Second World War come, and we all know Second World War was a pretty powerful event in the world, and Italy, especially the northern part of Italy, became occupied by the Nazi because of the Austria was, really Milano was under the Austrian Empire. So with that said, there was all those challenges, and it was a tough times. BICE Milano opened for couple of maybe like a decade, 26 to 38, 39 was in a location. And then when World War One started, my grandmother, the restaurant was bombed, the building, so they had to move overnight to a different location, which is the actual location today was there. I know stories of not being meat. For example, during World War II, you could not sell any meat because the meat should have only gone to the army. And of course, my grandmother, already a decade and knowing all the nobles, the wealthy people, she was like, no. So the story was that she was selling the veal breaded on top of the risotto, so that if anybody would walk around, they didn't see you eating meat. So I can tell you, my grandmother was very creative. She was a woman that really dedicated her life to this restaurant. It shows today, a century later, the hard work and the dedication. And then, on the other side, there is another amazing story of my grandmother. My grandmother was the first of 10 children.
Okay.
At the time, my grandmother's mother, what she was having children, and she was going to France to lactate. That's what women used to do at the time. So when
Hmm.
my grandmother was old enough, before she even moved to Milano, she became the caretaker of her siblings.
Wow.
Pretty powerful. Years later, when she decided to go to Milano, open this restaurant after Second World War, she started bringing one by one her siblings, bring her to the restaurant, taught them the restaurant business, and helped them open a restaurant around Milano. She did that with
Wow.
9 siblings. All of them became restaurateurs. One by one, she brought them up, taught them the trade, and helped them open restaurants around Milano. My father tells me that there was a time, before I was born, that the whole family, they had so many restaurants because they kept opening. And so again, this was beach challenges of survival. um, I try to get as much information on the operation. Unfortunately, iPads, iPhones, computers were not available, so I don't have as many stories as I was hoping to find about how it was for her as a woman. And I witnessed her, for example, one thing I'll never forget. And Bice Milano, the vegetable guy, comes in, the same guy that's been selling for decades to my grandmother. And I would see her go through the case of zucchini and, no, this one yes, this one no. And the guy telling me, only this woman can do that. Meaning, she was that particular, she was that dedicated. And so those are the memories I have, the stories I've heard that still today resonate inside of me, that gives me this passion I have for this business, that again, either you love it, the restaurant business, or you don't. And from a family, because here we are. See, being an engineer, you cannot teach your child how to be an engineer. He either becomes one or not, or an architect,
Hmm.
or a lawyer, or a doctor. Those are trades that you have to find within yourself. The restaurant business is different. I am now bringing in my children, which they started younger as bus servers, and now one of my son is 24 and he's really in it. He's a manager and he's learning and he's loving it and he's witnessing me. So it is something that you can transfer. And you don't require many years of schools, or all you require is passion, authenticity, and all those wonderful traits in life. So knowing that my grandmother did that not only to her siblings but then to her son, and then my father, her second son, and it was given from generation. It was just it's a flow that has happened in my family that I'm not only part of it, I am extremely proud of. Extremely proud of.
But things are moving, they don't stay the same. And when I met your father many, many years ago, almost 30 years ago, he had this passion to expansion, to bring BICE to other places in the world. And I remember that your father shared with me that the first restaurant outside of Milano was in Sardinia at the time when it became a very high class place where the Aga Khan used to go for vacation. And eventually, the place where the Milano was placed, the Bice was placed in Milano, became the center where the pret-a-porter began, where the Giorgio's Armani's and Giannis Versace's and all these Dolce Gabbanas began, and they were that was a place where they went for lunch. So my question goes to, how did your father had the idea to go out of Italy and then go to New York in the middle of the 80s, the end of the 80s? And that began another journey for Bici.
Um, I feel for, like I said, I'm in my mid 50s, and if you take it from my father now in his mid 80s, those of us that can look back at history, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, world life exploded. There's been so much progress, and Bice Milano. If you look at the fashion world in the early 70s, it's when, and again, I've been doing so much research for this book that we are putting together. In the early 70s is when fashion exploded, and Milano was a big part of it, because at that time many of these famous designers were just becoming the Versace, the Gucci's, all these brands that became from nothing. They started between Paris, London, but really Milano. Now, Bice Milano is in the fashion triangle, which is Monte Napoleone, Via della Spiga, and Via di San Getrudo. This is where the most powerful brand today. So at the time when this world exploded, and for those of us that lived it to whatever degree, me younger, others maybe a little older, Milano was a capital of it. Fashion Week Milano, which started in September, because there's different fashion weeks now, but then it was only in September. Milano was the center of the world. I mean, people, anybody that had money from America to any of the countries that today may be more important than less important, were coming to Milano for this event. And Bice had earned her reputation as this incredible woman. Not only the politics, but mostly the fashion photographer, models, because of that center where it was then. Again, it was such an incredible location. Bice Milano became this place where all these people started gathering. Giorgio Armani was a tailor before he became Armani, was going to Bice Milano and eating. Gianni Versace was a friend of my father, was a good friend of my grandmother. I have heard stories of other people that maybe didn't get as famous, but they were the backbone of this amazing industry that would always go to Bice. And many people, some I, which I talk to, will say that this woman had so much charisma. You would come, in Italy, we have, I think it's in Spanish as well, we speak with the he. There is this level of speaking that you don't say you, but you call, when you're speaking to somebody you don't know, you use this third way. It's like a polite way. My grandmother wouldn't do that. She would just come straight to you, and it's like you'd come into her home, and even these powerful men would be holding their, yes, Biche, we're here, we trust you, tell us. So this is the legacy that I am receiving from this incredible human being that dedicated her life to hospitality. And hospitality is beyond just making food. Hospitality is from the first mile when you walk inside my house to what I feed you, serve you, and from the moment you walk out. And that is what I learned from her. And she was very, um, I think that, with the explosion of this fashion and all these people starting to come in, my father, the dream, America. I remember my father, we went to America when we were young, and I remember going to Orlando and coming back. And in Italy, America, I mean, I think for the world, but I can speak for myself, America was America, the land of opportunity. So I can see how my father got really interested. And the reason we decided to go to America was because at the time, the owner of Barney's, Mr. Jim Pressman, which was and I'm talking, 70s, mid 80s, uh, most powerful. Barney's New York was
Mhm.
at the time before all these bigger Saks, and it was a very powerful man. And he was coming to our house. He knew my father. He's the one that convinced my father to go to New York. And again, New York, for those of us that lived the 80s and the 90s in Manhattan, best city in the world. I don't think that of it anymore today. Myself, many people will, still love it. But then the 80s, Manhattan was the center of the world, the stock exchange, all the big, anything that was worthy of would come to New York. And because of that, my father had this vision, and I little bit right time. I don't believe in luck. I believe in destiny. I think we are all driven by some higher forces, and that was my father's destiny, my family's destiny, because it was a journey. There was a little story, but that's how we come to this great country, America, the land of opportunity. And my father, the moment it arrived, if you can imagine that BICE Milano at the time maybe was doing a million, 100 in yearly sales, which for Italy was already, beach in New York the first year did $12 million.
Wow.
I mean, like they couldn't even understand it. That's when we went to New York. In Milano, we were still everything writing by hand. We went to New York, and it was computers ringing in, and I mean, a totally different experience. And from there, my father got a taste. Everybody started calling him Tokyo, Paris, Mexico, Buenos Aires, and it's to feel that special. It's something unique, and I can tell you, I would have done a little slower, but you take the opportunity at the time, and he ran with it. He ran with it, and here we are today.
But maybe you would agree with me, Raffaele, that journey, which seems incredible, and it was like a roller coaster, and a very rapid growth going from the United States in New York and then opening years later in Miami, in Los Angeles, in Vegas, and then going to Tokyo, Dubai. So things, the structures, they don't support this growth. So what has been those challenges of the growth that you have to tackle in order to sustain Biche on the time?
Okay, I wanna number one. I love my father. I I would not be here without him today. His guidance, his wisdom. So we are different, and in order, you said that those growth are not sustainable. Well, I don't agree with that. In the restaurant business, to sustain such growth, you need people, and you need good people. And good people is not easy to find, that's for sure. But there is a level of good people, and there's also a level of organization which I think could have been handled differently. I am very organized, I am very number oriented. My father was more of an artist, and did surround himself with people that, unfortunately, They could have done better, guided him better, but things didn't work out. We opened quite a few restaurants and kind of, well, the company opened a lot of restaurants and kind of, I don't want to say abandoned them, but a restaurant business is not just a brand. You need personality. You need someone that cares. You need someone that handles the mistakes, because we make mistakes, and how you handle a mistake, it's not that we're always perfect. And especially when you deal with the number of customers we do, we're not a small 20, 30 seats restaurant. We are a 150, 200 seats machines. And you can do today in my restaurant in Palm Beach with 220, 210 seats. I do 800 covers a night in the season, plus 300, 400 for lunch. Those are massive business to run. And I believe that while my father was focused on signing and creating new location, the team he had chosen unfortunately did not serve him well. So that, if I look back, obviously I was not as involved. I was a lot younger. I started, I started washing dishes. I started as a pizza. I started as a busser. I worked 3 years in the kitchens of New York, almost 3 years. I was an opening manager, closing manager, maitre d', general manager, director of operation. I did it all. I can tell you, in my company, I am the best dishwasher and I am the best balance sheet keeper. Like, I'm the best number guy in my company. I speak for all that surrounds me. There's wonderful people out there, but that's because I did it all. I come from the ground up. Uh, my father found himself, from my perspective, in such a fast, twirling moment, and you grab it. Those are moments you grab by the horn and you ride it. And like I said, I feel the people he trusted didn't serve him as much as you know I would have liked to see right now. But and that's the restaurant business. Unfortunately, I run 11 restaurants today, and I am as good as every individual in each location. The dishwasher is incredibly important. The manager is important. The waiters, every cook, and making sure that these people are happy when they come to work. In New York, we had the restaurant in New York was such an hostile environment. Uh, there was so much money. My father gave it to this one general manager, friend of his. Unfortunately, mistreated everybody. We got the union inside. I dealt for 21 years with a union in New York, which didn't allow me to really run the restaurant that way I was. So, looking back, I feel, great teams. Starts from the top, from the owner to every step down, and taking care of your people. My restaurant in Palm Beach today is 140 employees. That's one restaurant. Most of my restaurants are between 50 and 80. Some of the smaller one, 20, 30. But that's a lot of people to manage. And you've got to be able to manage them well and today is getting harder and harder. The hard working generation that I witness in myself, I witness in my father's generation. With our children today is a different life. It's a very, for those of us that have had kids in their 20s and are witnessing them and discovering themselves, it's a very different generation.
It is a very different generation. And talking about that, what are some of the tensions or moments of transition that your family have faced?
Listen, I mean, in my life, I can tell you the biggest challenge I faced was the crash of 2008. My father decided to go in 2005 into real estate and put all his eggs in one basket and in America. And then 2008 hit us, and we found ourselves in a very difficult moment. Of course, nobody could have predicted. Some did predict it, but if we all had a crystal ball, it would be too easy, right? So that, if I look back at the last 40 years of my life, because the first 10 you're a baby, and from 10 on you do have some recollection of your life or your lifestyle, that was the toughest moment we've had. My family, I have three sisters, and one of my sisters works with me on and off. We are so united, and in all this life, the challenges that life has brought to us, my family unified even more, and we went through them. So my biggest challenge was the 2008 crisis, I want to say. And then, I mean, listen, opening restaurant, closing restaurants, it's always a challenge, but those are easier challenges.
And you talk about your sisters, your three sisters, which are also owners of BICE, and that your kids are coming along to either work or eventually work at the restaurant. How do you make key decisions as a family in terms of a governance structure?
Well, today I am blessed because my sisters never really. My father took care of. My father was old school patriarch. Girls at home, boy, you go to work. When I was 20 years old, my older sister was going to college, 3 classes a week. She had the apartment paid. I was working 40 hours a week, and he was barely helping with the apartment because he pushed me. And I am grateful for that. I didn't understand it then, but what my father helped me become the man that I am today. With that said, today the company is owned by me and my three sisters. I am the managing member and the CEO. They are not working in the company really, and I am blessed because we have an amazing relationship. I've certainly earned my reputation of respect, and I I take care of my family. I take care of my father and mother. The company takes care of everybody. So I have certainly demonstrated to be an incredibly an ethical person because I can see and I hear stories in families where there's little games and they take from here and they end the jealousy and I want more. I don't have that. So for me, and once a month my sister and I we talk a lot, but once a month I call them, and especially after my father gave, we bought the company from my father and I am now running it. I bring them in and I say, guys, we're doing this, we're doing that, come and see the new restaurant. I am fully supported. We love each other so much. So again, in my situation, I am blessed because I have carte blanche. I do whatever I want. I do have, four of us. There's 10 children in the family, and they're all between 17 to 27. Uh, one, two. So I have two kids that work with me. One seriously, one is young, 18, so comes makes money, still in high school. I have my nephew who works a lot with us, but he's also a photographer. And then I have another nephew who's really working Eugene in the kitchen and is like my son, really getting inside the company business. How they're going to handle it in the future, we'll see. These are values I think we teach as a family. They look how we communicate. As a father, I have learned this. A 2-year-old hears and sees everything you do. A 12-year-old the same. A 20-year-old the same. So my actions, my communication, what I do is very important. And when you get to kids that are 20s, you can no longer teach them. You can only show them. So your actions become really, from my perspective, how you guide your children.
So you know that families grow faster than business, and the rules that used to apply in the past, they have to change and apply new rules in those sense. And now that you have a lot of nephews and your own kids, have you ever thought about putting together some kind of a family constitution to put some rules on the table for engagement in the future? And also, have you thought about, in terms of expansion and growing the business more, having a more a structure governance body like an advisory board or a board of directors that can help you make better decisions?
I am at a stage in my life where this is my time to shine. So I recognize that. I am extremely honored to be the face of this company that's going 100 years old for my family. And so at this stage, this is my governance. My children are young. I welcome them. And we live a very conscious life, my sister and I, a conscious life which is driven by transparency, integrity, truthfulness, values that not everybody upholds all the time, because so with that said, as I am now growing a little bit slower, I am not interested in the expansion and the vision my father has had. I want to be more centralized, and I want to be more organized. If I am to go, there are a couple of opportunities to go again outside the US, and I am carefully looking into those. With that said, I am surrounded by incredible people in Palm Beach that have already mentioned that to me. And I find myself that right now, my lifestyle is really healthy. I don't need this. I do want to grow, but I am growing at my pace. I just opened a new restaurant in Palm Beach 6 months ago, and I am there a lot. It's taken me through a great journey. And so, for the moment being, there is no need in my situation at this moment. As you said, as my kids are going to become older, my kids and my nephews and nieces, and as I see the true commitment of them coming in, there will be a structure. My sisters and I have already had conversation about this. What happens in 30 years from now if we have three, four, five kids, and we don't know how they're going to grow up to become this integral. It's a life work. It's not. So yes, we will set them up in place. In my situation at this moment, it is just myself. I don't have anybody else that I have to ask anything to in relating to my personal structure. And I have the total support of my sisters that are uh, really totally behind me. And again, I do want to say qualities I hold: integrity, transparency, accountability. And when you're working under these frequencies and these traits, already you have a safe space around you. And those that work with me and for me, I'm very clear with them. Sometimes I always find a bad apple. I just had to let go of a few people that didn't resonate with those core values. And we tried a few months, and then I realized you are not resonating with these values with me, that I am the owner, and therefore we need to part and move on.
So, taking in account, Raffaele, that next year is going to be 100 years of Bice. Uh, what do you think, or what do you see Bice in the next 30 to 40 more years in that sense? Where would be those lessons learned by yourself and your father that you would like to share with the audience for those families that are thinking, wow, 100 years, I would like to be like them, united and making all these great decisions, and as a family being so united.
Listen, the world is family. The world is family at home. The world is talking to your family, not only when they're young. And um, again, I parenting is the most amazing journey in life for those of us that have had the pleasure. And again, it's not always easy, and I'm very blessed today. I'm blessed. I've got five incredible children in this crazy world out there. For those teenagers today, it's harder than it was for us, from my perspective. With that said, family is the structure of everything. And as I said just a little bit while ago, if you have the respect of your children, because children go through many, sometimes they respect you, sometimes they have to go through those moments where they push you away, but they watch you, they watch everything you do. And if you have the blessings, like myself, to be able to bring your children to work when they were younger, just as it happened to me, and witness you. And I love what I do. I love what I do. I love the restaurant business. I love touching people. I love when people leave my restaurant and they say, "Wow, that was amazing." If you leave and you say, "Oh yeah, that was good," I struggle inside. I want more than good. I want amazing. And when you have that level of passion and you share it with your children, already there, you're opening up the door and planting a seed that might or might not grow inside of them. Of course, it requires feeding that seed and bringing them in, and hopefully you are lucky to have people inside the family that are going to continue. In my case, we are starting as a family food branding. It's a project I've been trying to do for a while. I am working on some sauces and soups that might come soon. I'm in the process of tasting that and trying it, and I partner with a wonderful person that does this and believes in us and in this 100 years old. And of course, the market is so much bigger today when you go to supermarket and things like that. So that is a wise decision. I see myself finding there is an opportunity that came, and then it's not on my table anymore, but it triggered me, and it's Casa Bice. It's a sacred luxury hotel. So that is a vision that I have this concept that came through me, that I see myself eventually finding the right partner to do something like that. So where do I see myself? I want to grow, but I want to grow healthy. I value my life. Today, my life outside the restaurant business is important as well. I work a lot, don't get me wrong. I'm old school, but instead of like my grandmother, maybe my father just work, I work 80% and 20% I give time to me, my family, my wife, because that's important as well. So I see a healthy growth. And with the mistakes that I have witnessed, excuse me, let me take that back. With the learning difficulties that I went through with my father and these 2 decades that this family group went through, I've learned a lot. They're invaluable lessons. All those walls we hit, and the losses and the mistakes and the bad location, the bad partners, and many things that today really enrich me. So as I go forward, I'm going to do this with more wisdom. I'm going to do this with more ease. And I am going to surround myself and make sure that I am surrounded with the right people that are going to be part of it. Because again, I can imagine being an architect. Yeah, you might need people, but it's your brain. As a restaurateur, I need the chef, I need the GM, and we need the people underneath it that represent. It's not me that goes and serve your table every day, especially when you have multiple locations. So I need to find people that resonate with my core values and are able to transmit it. The restaurant business today is an experience. My grandmother started as feeding people. Then Milano became, and the whole world went into, oh, okay, eating and business. Then it became a trend. Now it becomes where people go out, and eating out is part of, like, I mean, Palm Beach, there's a lot of older people. It's all they do. They go out at dinner, they go out at lunch, and, especially those that have money. So it's become an experience. And the experience is driven by, in my business, by so many factors. So, yes, do I see growth in my company? Absolutely. Another thing that I can tell you I will be more careful is, you guys were great partners. We had a fantastic run for 15 years in Mexico, and it's because it was good families working together. I can tell you I've had a lot of very opposite situation in other parts of the world
Mhm.
where there was no synergy and money, and then it becomes like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to go there. And I feel already, when I put myself in a situation like that, I am not able to give that best of me. So going forward, when and if I will find new partners, I want to make sure there are partners that share the same core values as I do. And those are lessons I learned. And then, the pasta sauce is a big deal. We'll see where that takes us.
Well, that's the secret sauce of Biche, maintaining their values and the family close and open communication in that sense. And finally, I remember I made this question to your father many years ago. Do you still maintain any of the dishes, the original dishes of Biche from 1926 in any of your menus?
So Bice has, so the answer is absolutely. There are 6 or 7 dishes: ossobuco alla milanese, cotoletta alla milanese, risotto alla milanese, pappardelle al telefono, Those are some dishes that every beach in the world will always have. Those are the recipe, the recipes that are simple recipes that anybody can make at home. Don't get me wrong, there's no special secret, but it's how we make them. And they continue to be the signature dishes. Those are values that represent a story that will never change. And the more I go on, the more I identify those as beach specials. And not because, I mean, because they're special to us. Again, a pappardella al telefono, a via milanese, you find in so many places. Well, the way we make it is attached to us, and people love it. But again, absolutely, those are, beach is a story, and it's a story that through the restaurant business is shared with the dishes, with the passion, the family, but especially the dishes. Absolutely, and very proud of that.
So I guarantee you, and I've tried them all for many years. If you ever have the opportunity to visit BICE or any other restaurants or brands that the Ruggeri family have created for many, many years, don't forget to try any of these dishes in their menu. Thank you, Raffaele, for taking the time. I wish you the best of luck.
I look forward
But
to
luck
greeting
comes
you
with a lot
here.
of hard work. And see you for the 100th anniversary of BICE next year.
Signor Mende, grazie mille. Pleasure to be part of your podcast and sharing the family values. Family is the secret to humanity. If you're asking me, let's keep our children, our families together, and let's keep shining as unities, because the world needs good families out there.
Well, thank you very much, Raffaele. Take care and say hello to your father and mother for
I
me.
will. Grazie mille.
What an inspiring conversation with Raffaele Ruggeri, a leader who embodies the elegance of Italian tradition and the resilience of modern family enterprise. Through his story, we're reminded that legacy isn't built in boardrooms. It's built around the family tables through love, consistency, and purpose. Raffaele taught us that heritage must evolve. What began as one restaurant in Milan became a global family brand because each generation dared to reinterpret tradition. Values are the invisible architecture of success. When a family lives its values authentically, they become the greatest competitive advantage. Leadership in family businesses is a relay, not a throne. The true measure of success is how well you prepare the next generation into how long you hold the baton. And finally, that hospitality begins with the family and radiates to the world. His words still echo in my mind. You don't inherit success, you inherit a story. And every family business leader listening that carries that same responsibility to be writing the story with humility, curiosity, and love. If this conversation moved you, share it with those who, like you, believe that a family's greatest legacy is not what it owns, but in what it stands for.